All right, good evening and welcome to the December 2nd meeting of the governing body. I call this meeting to order. If you stand, if able, for the invocation from myself and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather today with grateful hearts, mindful of the responsibility entrusted to us. Grant us wisdom to discern what is just, courage to pursue what is right, and compassion to serve the needs of all the people in our community. May our discussions be guided by respect and understanding, our decisions shaped by fairness and integrity, and our actions reflect the values of service and stewardship. Bless this council with unity of purpose, so together we may build a future marked by peace, prosperity, and hope. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Deputy Mayor Kell.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Acala. Ortiz. Here. Banks.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Hofer. Okay, we have 7 present with Mayor Padilla and Council members Valdivia Acala and Hofer absent.
Agenda item number 2, appointments. Madam Clerk.
A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Tamara Cortez to the Gage Park Improvement Authority to fill a term ending December 13, 2028. B is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Tim Karkoff to the Topeka Board of Zoning Appeals to fill a term ending December 31, 2028. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of James Parrish to the Downtown Business Improvement District Advisory Board to fill a term ending December 31, 2027. D and E are board appointments recommending the reappointment of Dean Patel and Kelsey Savage to the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District Advisory Board for a term ending December 31, 2027. And F is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Cassandra Taylor to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending December 31, 2027.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay, a motion by Councilman Miller and a second by Councilman Banks. And we'll go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 yes, the motion carries.
All right, thank you. And I believe Mr. Parrish is here. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but if you'd stand if you're in the audience, one of the people that were appointed, so you can be recognized. All right, agenda item number 3, presentations.
3 is winter operations update.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, members of the governing body, Tony Chower, our Deputy Director of Public Works, and Jason Tryon, Interim Director of Public Works, will lead us to this item. I think it's very timely given the snow that we just had, and so I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of the governing body. I'll let Tony take you through this start of this presentation. He's been through it far more times than I have.
Good evening, everyone. All right, this first map, or this first slide here, is the map of our snow zones, our emergency arterial and collector routes, and this map is on the Topeka map portal. Second one, storm preparation, prepare equipment, review snow routes, refresher training for staff. In September, fleet runs all of our snow trucks, spreaders, and plows through the shop. checking for proper operation and making any repairs needed. Also in September management, we looked through all of the snow zones and placing trucks and staff in for winter operations. And then we held our classroom and hands-on driving course training for all employees September 29th through October 3rd. Forecast, we closely watch forecasts, determine when storms will hit and how much precipitation is expected. We look at several different weather services to see what type of precipitation is expected with these storms, determine our plan of treatment. We plan a week out when we know a snowstorm is coming in. Contact street employees and other resources to stand by 12-hour shifts. When storms move in, we run 2 12-hour shifts, day and night crews. If needed, we utilize employees from forestry, traffic, WPC, and we have a contractor that takes care of the downtown area, zone 12, and then they do 5 north as well. Bridge treatment, arterial emergency routes, and with liquid de-icer if possible. When winter weather is forecasted, we look to see what type of precipitation is coming in. If it's going to be rain before snow or it's mixed, it won't do no good to put that treatment down. It just dilutes it out. When possible, we will pre-treat with brine to have bond breaker on all bridges, arterials, and collectors before the storm. Zone assignments, we have 14 zones. All emergency arterials and bridges are treated and plowed first. When the zones were set up, we have the way the zones are set up, each zone will get a 5 to 7 cycles through it in a 12-hour shift. Collector routes, our collector routes, the way we have those kind of set up, we move some things around. Most of those get hit as we're going through doing the arterials and emergency routes at the same time. Residentials aren't treated unless 6 inches or more snow falls and direction from the city manager for clearing. And then this process will continue when we're in a snow event, 24 hours until everything is back to normal conditions. Pre-treating bridges, arterials, and collectors and hotspots. When pre-treating all bridges, emergency arterials, collectors, and hotspots, that totals 581 lane miles. So for an example, during the pre-treatment of this last storm, we used 5,750 gallons of pre-treatment. We started that on Sunday prior to the snow moving in on Monday. During a snow event, we will also pre-treat our salt as we're spreading it out of the dump trucks. That activates that salt immediately when it hits the ground and starts working. We monitor the bridges. We keep a very close eye on them, so before for frost and then after a storm for freeze back.
So one thing that you may have seen this year that was new is that we do have an updated system that the public can view in order to track where our snow clearing efforts are happening. So once plowing begins, we will post a tracking map that'll show what streets have been driven by our plows. This is not intended to show pre-treatment activities. This is just showing what we've done once we're in that active snow fight scenario. And the public can go to this site and see what streets have been driven down and get near real-time updates. So this does not mean that that street is completely clear, but that does mean that we have given attention to that street. As this map fills in, you'll see those blue lines where our equipment has been driving down those streets. You can also adjust the timing on that map. So if you want to see, has that been driven in the past 2 hours? You can adjust the time to see, well, I looked at it this morning, I didn't feel comfortable driving it. Has it been driven or treated since that time? You can adjust the time to look and see those updates. And when we are in a snowstorm situation, you can go to topeka.gov. It'll be on the homepage in the latest news section to access that map. And then as always, we remind our residents that during a snow event, if you have concerns or if there's specific issues that need immediate attention, the best thing to do is call the call center at 785-368-311 or call the main office of the street department, which is 785-368-3830. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, fellows, for the presentation. One of the things that I noticed from constituents was that they didn't really understand the 6 inches rule. and why that's the standard? Could you kind of go over that a little bit to understand why 6 inches is the thought and what kind of variables would change it? I know that city manager can make the final call on that, but could you kind of give the public an understanding of why it's that way?
So the basic answer is why 6 inches is because obviously we want to treat our residential streets when there is an absolute need to do so. Most of the time when we're looking at snow events, for us to go into those residential streets, we could eventually be doing more harm than good. If we go into those residential streets and start pushing snow around, it's very likely we're going to push it in front of someone's driveway, in front of someone's car. Also, those streets are very narrow. If we have to take time away from treating the larger streets to treat those residential streets, we could be impacting areas that are getting more traffic. So what we want to do is be as efficient as possible. Also, being aware of the fact that we don't want to create a situation where we had a day like today where we had a nice 40-degree sunshine weather. And had we gone into those residentials yesterday or last night, we could have been creating mounds of snow on people's driveways that now would have to be manually cleared. When if we had not been in those streets, after a nice day of sunshine, a lot of those issues were resolved with the benefit of Mother Nature. So that's really part of the consideration, is that we want to be as efficient as possible and serve our residents as best as possible.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Banks.
Tony, could you refresh the constituents' knowledge about when we have inclement weather like we had yesterday, when it comes to school areas where there are schools, what are we doing there?
So every year prior to winter hitting, I get with 501 School District, I work with Metro Bus Service, and along with townships in the county, we all sit down and talk. We provide salt to 501 school districts, and so all of those, then they treat around those schools themselves to approach, so they can use on the collectors to get to a arterial. So they have their own equipment in that, and we provide them salt anytime that they need it. So all of the schools and all that is done by 501 themselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman Hillard.
Thank you for doing a great job. I don't look for the Facebook feeds, but sometimes I stumble into them, and as usual, we get the back and forth of people's opinions. But my question would be, is there a reason why you are not displaying where you've pre-treated?
So typically, we want to make sure that when we're looking at pre-treatment, depending on the type of snow event, that's going to have a very different effect. Just because an area has been pre-treated, that is not an area that may be safe to drive on as of yet. So what we really want to show on these areas is where are we actually applying plowing, or where are we applying the post-treatment, because that's really when you're going to see an effect on whether or not that road is going to be drivable. If we're showing pre-treatment, we could be potentially showing a situation where one of our vehicles has driven down that road 3 or 4 times, but if that happened before the snow started, we don't want people proceeding into those areas yet until we've had a chance to treat those after that snowfall has started. If they wouldn't feel comfortable driving on a snowy street like that.
That's a pretty good point, that people might interpret that as a guarantee on our part that it would be fine. I guess I remember when we switched to the brine and spraying it, and we knew that the deal is nobody would know, that they couldn't see it. Wasn't like sand, putting sand out like we used to, or salt crystals that you could see. And so people haven't realized that we did pre-treat. So I guess I was thinking if we could, maybe it would need to be with some sort of a codicil or, waiver with it, but, because people were saying they haven't been anywhere, and I knew we had.
Yeah, and I would say we can certainly see that information internally.
Yeah.
So we have visibility to where that pre-treatment took place and how much pre-treatment was used. But when we're talking about a public-facing map, especially if you have a scenario where his crew may have been out all night driving those streets since midnight, but you don't know the snow didn't start falling until 4 a.m. You just woke up and started getting ready for work. We want you to see what's happened since the snow has really been taking place. And we think that's the safest thing to show to our residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you, Team Trower. One of the things that I worry about each year is the Quinton Heights on 24, that hill. And there's one in Oakland, and there's, of course, 21st and Winningsburg, that's closed. And then the narrowness and where I live, and Tony, you know where I'm talking about, do we need to report that every year, or do you have a list that the people know this is going to be taken care of, or?
Sorry, we actually have a list, and we just started again today. Areas, when we do the dry run, we have our employees let us know of other areas that we've got called back to, or we keep record of that multiple times. So we are making a whole new, we call it a hotspot list, and those lists will actually be getting pre-treated as well. Burnett's Mound's one of them. It's just a given, we have to. It's hard to get a truck up
Right.
there, and so we'll be adding a lot of those to that list. I know Wittenberg Hill's already on it and all that.
Well,
stuff.
Winningsburg's closed, so.
Right, it's
whoever's
closed now,
going
but
down
it's on
there,
the list.
they're going to hit the,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's on the list though. So,
Okay, okay.
And then we just added some this afternoon off of California and 25th Street. Some of the residential areas up in there, we just have to do those, so.
okay. So I guess, I don't want to be redundant, but I guess I should just turn them in. You know, I don't like driving in this type of weather, and I thought Banks was going to come and get me, but you see he didn't. And I'd probably call the fire chief to come and get me before I called Banks anyway, but it's terrible. It's terrible where I live. You know, the ditches, the narrowness, and it's frozen. By the time I get ready to go back home, it's frozen. So that's why I'm always asking, because we're always pulling out cars.
Right. If you have some of the hotspot lists, feel
Ninth
free
and
to
eighth.
email them to Jason and I, and we'll
Okay,
take a look at that, and we can get them added to the list. So.
okay, all right. So I don't get no special treatment, just so people know that. It's just a really bad area on 9th and 8th and Golden and all through that area over there because of the hills. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate what your crews do. I used to do snow removal, and it's the worst at nighttime when it's blowing with snow and you feel like you're doing warp speed, you know, because you have all that snow coming at you. So, and it's very messing with your mind. I would love to see us pop out news releases every single time with kind of our standards, so then the news can pop that out for us also. Now, part of your, I wrote kind of right down the hot spots, what you're talking about. Does that include like when you realize maybe an area has a lot of traffic accidents? Does that play into that also?
It does, but a lot of it is hills and where you're approaching stop signs. It's on an incline or you're coming down a hill to approach a stop sign. A lot of it is that stuff. So.
I've noticed the last couple of years at 37th and Truman, right off where I live, where at least that last 10 feet is pretty clear. So, you know, if I do start losing it, I can always finally hit that clear spot and it'll stop me before I end up on 37th. There are a few areas I would like to add, you know, that corner Kansas right next to KTA, it always seems like it's snowpacked and never gets cleared, and I'm just waiting for someone to go past that corner, down the hill, right onto the railroad tracks. So I would love to see that be something with maybe double, triple treat it, you know, throw down, you know, twice or three times the amount of salt in that area, so that way we don't have someone end up down that hill on the railroad tracks. Because that is, the last couple of years has been a very snow-packed area that, you know, the rest of the road can be snow-packed, and I'm perfectly fine with it, but that corner just always scares me.
Okay.
I think Councilman Miller wanted to add something.
No, I was sitting there thinking about, I remember them saying that if you overtreat a road, you can do more damage. Okay. So that's when you said triple treat, I was checking to see if we did something like that.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is, in the crash course that I've received, our operators are very knowledgeable. They know how this treatment works. They know what weather conditions it works in, and they know how to apply the proper treatment. We always want to know areas that are needing more attention or that are issues, but we can trust our operators and their supervisors to make sound decisions based on the weather conditions.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Next is agenda item number 4, consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
A is approval of a Utilities Department contract amendment for professional services between the City of Topeka and Black & Veatch Corporation in an amount not to exceed $146,427. Items B, C, D, E, and F are resolutions introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of council members Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval to amend the 2026 to 2025 or 35 CIP and the 2026 to 2028 CIB to include projects for improvements to the water treatment plant and North Topeka Pump Station rehabilitation as further described in Exhibit A. Item C is recommending approval of project number 281165 for the water treatment plant waste intake rehab as further described in Exhibit A. D is recommending approval of project number 281166 for chemical building rehabilitation as further described in Exhibit A. And E is recommending approval of project number 291087 for North Topeka Pump Station rehabilitation as further described in Exhibit A. And F is recommending approval of project numbers 841099 Phase 9 and 501107 Phase 10 for street and sewer improvements for Central Highland Park Phase 2. G are minutes of the regular meeting of November 18, 2025, and there is a list of cereal malt beverage license applications, and staff is recommending approval.
All right, you've heard the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? All right, approved by Councilman Miller and seconded by Councilman Dobler. Roll call, please.
You can take, he's the vote. Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right, on to agenda item number 5, action items. Madam Clerk?
A is a resolution and notice of intent introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert M. Perez declaring the necessity to repair, alter, construct, enlarge, or improve the city's water pollution, and/or stormwater utility system through improvement projects authorized by resolution and providing notice of intention authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds in the manner required by KSA 10-1201 at SEEK.
All right, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item.
Good evening, governing body. Tonight before you is an allowance to issue a notice of intent. This one's a little different than what we do in the past. So typically, the last couple of months when we've issued notice of intent, that's for possibly issuing new revenue bonds. This one's a little different. What we're doing tonight is simply reassigning unspent bond proceeds from previous utility projects to cover the existing utility projects within the packet. So it's not any new bond issuances or new bonding, it's just reassigning existing money. So this is just a formality that we have to comply with state law.
Are there any questions? Oh, sorry. Motion by Councilman Dobler and seconded by Councilman Hofer. All right, sorry. Motion approved by Councilman Dobler and seconded by Councilman Hofer. On to the vote, please.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Action item B.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez authorizing the execution of an agreement between the City of Topeka, Kansas and the State of Kansas, acting by and through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for the purpose of obtaining a loan from the Drinking Water Loan Revolving Fund for the purpose of financing replacement of drinking water lead service lines and eligible galvanized service lines that provide water from the distribution center system to the end user, establishing a dedicated source of revenue for the repayment of such loan, authorizing and providing for the issuance of combined utility revenue bond series 2025B of the City of Topeka, Kansas, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing and approving certain documents in connection with such loan and bonds, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the agreement and such bonds.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Josh McInerney, Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item.
I'll cover B and C in tandem. So kind of like Brenda said, this is for the lead service lines project. This is just a notice to issue the bonds and then make the bond payment to KDHE, just a requirement for the loan agreement with KDHE. Something similar to the past was with the Grant Jefferson Pump Station that we did in the past. That's a previous time that we did something like this.
All right, any questions? Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you. Forgive me, because I should know this, but if you could refresh, what this is that it's an $11 million loan, but the federal money will pay it all back, will be a net cost to the city?
Yeah, so I can't remember the exact interest rate, but basically, yeah, we enter an agreement with KDHE. KDHE will hold the bonds, and then we make the loan payment to KDHE, and I think it's at a very low rate. I can't remember the exact rate off the top of my head.
And this is for residential service lines?
I would have to
For our
defer to utilities on that, but
Just trying to double check the scope of the project and who it's for and how long we expect it to take to do all that work.
So that's a great question, and we are still muddling through some of the final ruling and things that have been trickling out recently. So our plan to do these replacements is not required until 2027. That's really when some of this action has to be moving forward, but we are actively working on things every day as it is. This dollar amount and the loan is for whatever activities we need to take on to address lead and copper compliance. So what is it going to take to replace those lines? And if the city determines that we want to spend those monies on the private side of things, we can do that. Does that make sense? So if you recall, our original ask was a $75 million estimate to replace all of our unknowns. As we've whittled that unknown number down to one line that we still do not know, we've identified everything else, and now we have a much stronger estimate at this $11 million to replace our infrastructure and any of the customer side of things up to the right-of-way. And then we would need to determine, are we going to go ahead and spend additional monies to replace those private service lines up to the house or not? Again, we're trying to whittle those items down to make sure we have a much stronger plan to come forward to you all. But this money will cover everything that we are obligated to do. Whether we want to go above and beyond, I can't tell you that that's going to cover doing more. But currently, I'll just say a rough plan is if we want to partner with a homeowner and those costs that we can work with the contractor on are such that we can do those that are really needing replaced. I'm afraid I don't want to go on record promising something we can't deliver. So right now, I'll just say that this money will help us replace the city required infrastructure and any other work that we need to do for compliance to date. If the city decides to go above and beyond, we will have to then look to see what we can afford. Does that make sense?
Yes. Just a follow-up question, though. So this is the service, this is the lines to where the resident would be responsible for the inside the property lines, or is it just to the meter?
I think our estimates, let me get back to you on that. I know you guys are trying to get to a place where you feel comfortable voting, but I'm quite certain that this estimate takes into account if we were to do up to the outside of the home, because that's what we've been planning all along.
Okay. And so then what we're talking about is if in fact they need X, Y, and Z inside the home, whether we would do it for them, consider that possibly, or at least be able to say this is all it would cost, and we can do it while we're doing the other
Yes.
project.
Yes. Internal plumbing, completely separate animal, right? And some of the grant monies that the city has been able to obtain are for internal plumbing. But right now, all of our cost estimates have been to date up to the outside of the home. Well, I didn't make that clear before.
That helps, just
Okay,
the wall,
sorry.
where it goes inside the wall.
Yes.
Got it. And then, just to clarify one more time, this is not going to, we're not going to be provided any grants or reimbursement from someplace else to cover the cost of these bonds. We're going to be paying that out of the utilities.
So yes, and I forgot to mention earlier, so 52% is principal forgiveness, so of the $11 million, 52% of that principal will be eventually forgiven. That's the agreement.
Okay. I'm now dizzy, but okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we have a motion from Councilman Dobler and a second from Councilman Banks.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Action item C.
C is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez, prescribing the form and details of and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of not to exceed $11,010,000 aggregate principal amount of combined utility revenue bonds, Series 2024A of the City of Topeka, Kansas, previously authorized by the ordinance of the issuer, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Josh McInerney, Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item.
So in the same vein of the last conversation, this is just a resolution on the KDHE loan project.
Any questions? We have a motion from Councilman Banks. Is there a second? A second from Councilman Dobler.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right, on to action item D.
Mayor, members of the governing body, if I could ask that we please remove items 5D and 5E and defer them to December 16th.
All right, anyone have an issue with that? All right,
Thank you.
so it looks like we're going to move on to action item 5F.
Okay. F is acceptance of land dedications in the final plat for Timber Ridge Subdivision Number 3 on the property located east of Southwest Wanamaker Road and south of Southwest 53rd Street within the 3-mile jurisdiction of the City of Topeka.
All right, thank you. We do have one public comment signed up for this one. Did everyone want to go with that one first? Okay. Angela Sharp. Hello.
Good
Do you know
evening,
how
council
this-
members.
Have you done this before, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, so, okay, 4 minutes and then they'll.
Yeah, I'm actually just here to answer any questions you might have on the plat. I'm the design engineer for representing the owner.
Okay, usually public comments is speaking and stuff like that, but, all right.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any question, or on the city manager, actually?
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Dan Warner, Planning Division Director, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor, governing body. So this plat is located outside the city, as already noted. It's approximately 38 acres. The plat ultimately allows for the development of 84 residential lots. A little bit of background related to this one and why it's outside the city, and we're approving a plat, a major plat as it is. So the developer entered into an interlocal agreement for a sewer interceptor that ran through this area and ultimately connected to Washburn Rural High School. The developer helped pay for that along with the city and the school district, and the development of Timber Ridge was part of that development agreement. So that agreement allows for the subdivision outside the city. The Planning Commission approved this plat in 2002. So there were conditions of approval that needed to be addressed. The primary one was a county requirement that a road from this subdivision be connected to the west to Wanamaker Road. In the intervening years, the developer and Shawnee County came to an agreement that the road connection is not required with this subdivision, and instead the developer will construct a sidewalk that will connect to Southwest Wanamaker Road. Governing body's role in this process is whether or not to accept dedications of easements and rights of way. Be happy to try to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Motion by Councilman Dobler. I'll go ahead and second that. Oh, actually, Councilman Miller seconded.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
We're going to G, is it?
G is discussion with possible action of an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez, providing for a non-exclusive franchise to American Medical Response to operate an ambulance service within the city of Topeka until December 31, 2026, and replacing the franchise ordinance codified at City Code Appendix B, Article 11, that will expire December 31, 2025.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Mayor and members of the governing body, this item is required by approval by January 1st of each year to continue the franchise agreement with AMR to provide our EMS services. The franchise agreement that you have before you this evening does not have any material changes. Essentially, we're just asking for continuation of the franchise agreement as exists with AMR. We have representatives from AMR and Topeka Fire here, in case you have any questions.
Any questions? All right, we have a motion by Councilman Dobler and a second by Councilwoman Hofer.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
Action item H.
H is a resolution introduced by the members of the Policy and Finance Committee relating to the City of Topeka's legislative agenda for the 2026 legislative session.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. I'm not sure if Chair Duncan can help lead us through this discussion, but essentially what we're bringing forward is the draft legislative agenda that we discussed, I believe it was last council meeting. I know that there were some other items to include discussion of medicinal marijuana, taxing that, and then also some discussion about the making punishment for child abuse laws a little bit more stringent. Basically, we're here this evening to further discuss that item and hopefully get consensus on our legislative agenda, given that we have preliminary meetings with our Shawnee County delegation next week on the 8th to discuss our legislative agenda.
Mr. Duncan?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add in that we discussed it last week. We didn't make any considerable changes. I did send to 3 different council members proposed amendments to what they suggested regarding property tax issue, regarding human trafficking, and regarding medicinal cannabis, and leaving it up to them if they'd like to present those and insert them. Otherwise, this is the document as it is. So if there's amendments, great. If not, here we are. So that's all I have to add at the moment.
All right, Councilwoman Heller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm bringing forth an amendment that I mentioned last week. It's been screened by Chair Duncan, who says it looks okay. So, and that one has to do with the zeroing out of property taxes on vacant structures. And so the proposal would be to add under the finance and taxation section, which starts on line 15, down on line 34, under property tax valuation, to simply add a sentence at the end of that section. That section, just for those who can't see it, talks about the city having a vested interest in an equitable and sustainable valuation system, suggests that the state should re-examine property valuation laws, and in cooperation with local governments, modernize the residential and commercial valuation system, makes a reference to Kansas ag property valuations. The new sentence would say, the state should re-examine statutes and policies that allow for zeroing out the value of structures that are vacant but can be rehabilitated. What's happening right now is if we have a structure that sits vacant, and I don't know exactly how many years it is, the appraisals zero out the value of the structure altogether and only assess the property owners the value of the land. Yet we end up with a great deal of responsibility looking after that property, especially if they aren't, in terms of it being secured, mowed, how its exterior looks, and our code compliance responsibilities. And so the idea of being able to keep that structure more at its true value, even if it needs to be rehabilitated, but not zeroing it out, which also we've worked a variety of ways trying to incentivize property owners of vacant properties to get them rehabbed. Having your taxes zero out reduces that inclination to sell it or get it fixed up. So.
Councilman Duncan?
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
That is a motion. Brenda, I've got a copy of it for you coming down.
All right, Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So who makes a determination as to whether it's able to be rehabbed or not?
We have in our property maintenance code a threshold figure that we use for either condemnation or not for demolition. So we can use ours. I mean, this is a little bit open-ended as far as that goes. And what has to happen is we've got to look at what the appraisal standards are and whether it's based on state law or whether it's an industry practice that needs to be addressed in order to keep that tax valuation up. So didn't answer all the questions, but laid them out, hopefully.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I do agree with it. It does make sense. It can keep blighted properties from where the property owner just doesn't want to do anything, and
Exactly.
and they don't feel like they have to. But if they're being taxed at that rate of the neighbor that has a usable building right next to them, then it might motivate them to either rehab it, tear it down, or sell it. And so just sitting on a property that they're not going to, good examples, White Lakes Mall. How many years did we sit on White Lakes Mall just sitting there falling in on itself, catching fire, and all those things?
Well, and we've tried things like the vacant property registry, which has taken us an amount of time and money and hasn't been particularly successful, but leaving the taxes themselves, the appraisers or other people, and it's on those tax rolls already, could really streamline something we've been looking for.
Anyone else? So we have a motion from Councilwoman Hiller and a second from Councilman Duncan.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the amendment carries.
All right, any other amendments or comments, questions? Councilman Miller?
Thank you very much. I brought up the medical marijuana idea during our committee meeting and during the last city council meeting. The language in which we would need to go forth to do it, I don't have. I don't have that stuff together right now because I didn't think that was something that we would even be honestly even contemplating. But I would love, if there is some support around the dais for that, then I think that is something that we should take the lead on. Yeah, I understand that Kansas is probably going to be the last state to do it. I get it. But we got to start somewhere. And a lot of these other states have this tax revenue that they can use, and I feel like we're wasting our time. So, Spencer?
Mr. City Attorney, is this something that's set in stone, or can we add on to this as the year goes on if we feel like we need to add something to this?
Well, I don't believe it's necessarily set in stone. I don't think you're held to this. And I'll yield to Councilmember Duncan to clarify. But yeah, this isn't, I don't believe anything that you're locked into necessarily.
Okay, all right. Councilman Duncan?
Yeah, we can always take an issue on something at any time as a city and add it. So it's something that we can keep working on the language, and then if it does come up in the legislature during the session, since we meet 3 times a month, it's easy for us to throw it on an agenda and say, hey, let's add this so we can go be supportive of it at the legislature.
That worked for me.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
City Attorney, did we get my boarded house language in there?
Councilman Duncan shaking his head yes.
Okay.
I know we talked about it, but
Yes. Well, it was in the resolution in front of them.
It's part of the resolution in front of you, is what I've been
Okay.
told, so.
thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Hillard?
Councilman Duncan, talking across the table here, but I thought you said you drafted language for each of the 3.
I did.
Pardon?
I did, and I sent it to the council members, so
Right, so
they
Councilman
still want
Miller,
to push it forward, they can. And
I didn't have it.
he sent you language.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying I don't have language of mine.
I see. Okay.
But if we can adopt his, I'm happy to do it. I'm just saying, like, I personally didn't bring something.
I don't mind
Sorry.
talking about it this evening.
Yeah.
I guess is where I was going with that, too.
Okay. Then, I mean, we can put that language in. I feel like we should. Let's start off the year with it. Let's let them know that this is how we're thinking. Pin it in later once something comes up. Might be a little too late. And I probably know what's going to happen at the legislature when it comes to it, but I still think we should be leading not necessarily have to lead the charge, but because I'm sure the Kansas City area, Kansas cities, or their counties and their cities are definitely ready since they have their partners right next to them. But I feel like Topeka should be ready to go on that. So I'm good with his language. I just didn't provide some myself. That's why I was saying.
All right, Councilman Banks?
I support Councilman Miller's resolution, and if there are some questions after we discuss it, maybe we can have a public vote on it to see what the public thinks about it. Certainly the revenue makes sense. We're such a traditional city. I think a public vote or some more public information from the public would give a little more grounding for what we're trying to get done, I think. Thank you, Deputy.
All right. Councilwoman Ortiz?
Well, with all due respect, I don't know what to support because I haven't seen or heard of or read any of the language. So I've just had temporary discussion, so I can't support something that I haven't seen.
That's fair. Spencer, you want to give a short overview of your language on it?
Sure, I'm gonna have to find it. That's why I sent it out.
That's it.
That's why I sent it out to other council members who are interested in it so that they could pursue it if they so desired.
Hold on, Councilman Duncan, Mr. City Attorney.
Yeah, council member, I do have the proposed language in front of me if you'd like me to read it. There's an additional section added to the end. After line 81, rights-of-way control, there's a section titled miscellaneous, and it states, legalization of cannabis. The city supports legalization of medical cannabis in Kansas, which should be subject to existing state and local tax and city, to existing state and local sales tax, and cities should be able to levy their own excise fees and receive a portion of any state funds to offset the impact of medical cannabis. Each city should have the ability to opt in to allowing dispensaries in their city and to further regulate operations.
Spencer, I apologize. I didn't know you sent that just to me. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, it seems pretty clear, and it gives us the opportunity to have some discussions about it. So I would like to move to add that to the legislative agenda.
I'll second that. Any more discussion on the matter? All right.
While we're waiting.
Councilwoman Heller?
That language really does allow for local input, just allows a framework, so that covers some of that conversation we had.
This is on the amendment.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 6 yes with council members Ortiz and Dobler voting no. Motion carries.
All right. Mr. City Attorney, do you want to read the one that I brought up, or I have it pulled up and I can read it?
I don't have that one in front of me right now,
Okay.
so if you have it,
Okay.
I'll go to you.
So it says, new section 8 to be added under public safety and welfare. The city of Topeka supports continued state-level efforts to combat human trafficking and sexual abuse. We encourage the legislature to strengthen policies that enhance prevention and prosecution, provide resources and training to cities, expand support to survivors, and strengthen penalties for individuals committing these crimes. This, to me, is a matter that, with the world we live in today, information is all out there, so you see it a lot more, but it has been an ongoing issue for decades, and it's something I think we need to take a forefront in, because I've lived in larger cities in Kansas, I've lived in smaller cities. When this happens in the smaller cities, it's a slap on the wrist, it's getting it out of the paper, it's moving on, it's getting it out of the gossip circle. So cities like Kansas City, Topeka, Wichita are a little harsher on these matters, but I think we need to look at it across the state and be the forefront of that for our other communities, so we are protecting our children in these situations, because I've worked at the state prison in Lansing, and I've seen what people, I've heard what people have done and seen what sentences they've gotten, and a lot of times it slaps on the wrist for child sexual abuse, and as you see all the time anymore, it's a daily thing in the news, and it's disheartening to see, and I think we need to really take a step forward to really harshen the punishments on these type of things. I would move to approve that amendment. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Dobler. Any discussion?
Okay, hold on a minute here.
All right, on to vote then.
Oops. Yeah. Hold on, sorry. I'm going to add this in. Hold on just a second. Okay, we are ready to vote. Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right, any more amendments or discussion about the legislative agenda in general? Oh, Councilman Duncan?
No, sorry, I was just waving at something.
All right, does someone move to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
All right.
Second that.
All right. So we have approval to move it forward as amended by Councilman Dobler and seconded by Councilman Miller.
Okay, Dobler. All right, are we ready to vote? All right. Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
All right. Councilmember Miller?
Oh, I gotta hit the button. Thank you.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
And I believe our new lobbyists are here, are they? Maybe not. Okay. I thought they were. All right. On to action item I.
I is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez concerning utility rates, amending sections 13-05020 and 13-05050 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original sections.
All right. We do have a public comment. Danielle Twemlow.
Thank you. I really mainly want just to throw out some questions for us to consider. Actually happened to find all the notes from the last time in 2019 and probably 21 and 23 that we had this discussion. I know this is very specifically also about changing back from the readiness to serve to the base rate and how to kind of cover those costs. But I want us to contemplate a few things, and I have some questions about. For instance, in 2018, we still had about $30 million on the first Kansas Public Water Supply Loan Fund that we were paying on. We're still going to be paying on that for several more years. And so, you know, what were we doing with that money in 2018? That's quite a bit more than we're even asking for now. So wondering kind of what happened with that and why we're going to be doubling up on that principal and interest for that one, although it is a very low interest rate, like 2.5%. But then we kind of fast forward to 2019 where we had the water study done. I believe Steve Wade was finance director, and we had several discussions at that point, Braxton and Public Works, about the water study not being sufficient. However, the same company that we are using for all the studies that we approved tonight in the consent agenda is the exact same company who did the 2019 water study. So if it wasn't, sufficient in 2019, I'm not sure why we're still doing business. So we're just going to go off the assumption that it is an efficient water study since we're still doing business with them, which I question how we do that. So with that being said, their water utility rate increases, which granted we didn't do the exact full amount of doing the utility increase, about 1.5% less in only 3 years instead of 5. However, if we go back to that 2019 study, which they were projecting the ideal rates that would happen over that period of time in order for us by 2026 to be able to address a large number of our main replacement and allow for optimal investment in assets with double-digit revenue increases. And that, by 2025, was going to be a base rate of $38.24, volume charge of $7.38, which is 5% less than what we even had last year. So we exceeded the 2019, which, by the way, I'll remind everyone again, they estimated a 20% inflation rate, which Kansas had an 18.5-ish inflation rate. So we exceeded that as well. And I do know that we continue to say, well, we'll never get that $1 million a mile. But really, the RS means for 2019 to 2025 construction cost increase, specifically for concrete, adds about a 25% in that time frame. So about $250,000, $300,000 for that $1 million a mile, which we're in some years, 2024, spending $3.4 million a mile to replace these lines. And that makes me question what we're doing with our contracting yet again. So I am just concerned by the continuous rate increase, which, by the way, the current rate increase, just can I have 30 seconds to compare the increase?
Hold for a minute.
All right, one more minute, please.
Thank you. So the rate increase that's being proposed tonight is identical to the rate that Steve Wade and Braxton had back in 2023 for the 2026 year. It's the exact same. The charts are the same there with 10%, just 10 cents for the volume charge, but the base rate and the readiness to serve, all of those are exactly the same as that proposed rate from 2023. So I'm really concerned how we keep having these rate increases and we keep taking out these loans with the exact same statement being said that we're not going to have safe and clean drinking water unless we do this rate increase, yet we continue to not see that output match. Right now, Kansas City is doing 15 miles of line replacement for a $10 million federal grant. They're 65% done. So there are comparables that show that definitely there's more funding, including that EPA, to make that work. Thanks.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Sylvia Davis, our Utilities Director, will lead us through this item.
Good evening, members of the governing body. So I'm just going to start with a very quick recap of a presentation that was given at the Public Infrastructure Committee for everybody that wasn't there and able to listen to that. Skim through some things, but then, of course, come back for more detailed questions once you guys are ready. But we did a quick recap of how we got to the rates that were set for 24, 25, and 26. Those rates were set at the end of 2023 and went into effect January 1 of 2024. And wanted to point out to everyone that at that point, that is when we changed from the base charge to readiness to serve. The intention was to allocate the cost of the system across all who receive the benefit, not just those who were active at the time. If you dive back into the history, you'll know that this was suggested several years ago by some of these earlier rate studies. That is when the city went from a minimum charge. Councilwoman Ortiz addressed this in that meeting, where our customers used to pay X amount of dollars for a minimum amount of use, 1,500 gallons, I think it was, regardless of whether they use that or not. At that point, we changed to that base charge, and ordinance said, or ordinance language said, it didn't matter whether or not you were active, you were going to pay that. Everyone knows now today that wasn't, it wasn't being administered in that manner. So 2023 came, we made the decision collectively to implement readiness to serve, changing that base charge. That allowed us to, in conjunction with placing a higher burden of the rates the increase at the time on commercial and industrial users. Our goal was to reduce the impact to our low-income users by reducing the impact of that 5/8" customer that we continue to talk about, and securing funding for the water assistance program. Our 5/8" meter customers make up 70% of our customer base. If that gives you some idea of the impact and why we wanted to address those customers. It is a majority of our, it is the majority, 70% of our customers. Again, this is how we came up with the funding source for the water assistance program. The readiness to serve impact, if we do not collect readiness to serve for 2026, that will cause us to have a revenue shortfall of $582,000 for water, $457,000 for wastewater. Our previous proposal that we brought to you all, this is just a recap of that. Again, these numbers were based on the most common residential water meter size of 5/8", and we showed that we would eliminate, actually, we gave some very basic information with this proposal on what the readiness to serve charge looked like currently. It's going to be moving to $18.22 for water, and then $14.43 for wastewater, $7.34 for stormwater in 2026. We gave you those numbers and then showed you how the proposed language that we originally brought to you would impact that. If you were an active customer, you would be going up approximately 90 cents a month in water. So we talked to that the last time we were in front of you. At the Public Infrastructure Committee, we came back, tidied up some numbers, and presented 3 options. Based on the fact that at the last governing body meeting, we heard a lot of different feedback. We heard some in favor of keeping it as is, some who would prefer to eliminate the readiness to serve charge. Lots of different feedback, of course. So the first option was to reduce that number, but still apply an increase across the base, all water meter sizes. That resulted in a proposed increase of 84 cents a month for water and 68 cents for wastewater. You can see the examples I brought to you tonight, which we talked about at the committee meeting, are a little bit more reflective of what a customer would see, because it's going to capture the base rate or the readiness to serve charge plus consumption. What is an average customer using? So you can see our current rates that are to go into effect are on the left-hand column. With average consumption, we're looking at an $84 bill. With this proposal, and for those 5/8" customers, the anticipated increase would total $85.52 a month. So you're looking at a $1.50 increase for active customers if we went with option 1. Pros and cons, everyone sees that same $1.52 increase, whether you're the smallest user in Topeka or whether you're the largest user in Topeka. That's the takeaway from applying this across the board to the base rate. If we wanted to look at consumption, we looked at the same adjustment across all of our customer classifications to the tune of a 10-cent increase for water and a 9-cent increase for wastewater. So if you are, again, that 5/8" customer, average usage to an $84 bill, combined with stormwater, of course, what would that look like on my new bill? It's going to look like $84.57. So the pros for this option, applying that to consumption, is that if you're a 3,000 gallon user, you're going to pay an additional 57 cents total. If you are a 30,000 gallon user, it's going to look like $5.70 more on your monthly bill. And if you're a 3 million gallon user, it's going to be $570 increase on your monthly bill. So you can see the weight of the changes that we need to apply is applied across the board per how much water you're using. To relate that back to what does it look like for an average customer, a 3,000 gallon customer is equivalent to a 4-person household on average. Talking with the team today, if you look at one of our, I won't say names, but one of our very popular chain restaurants on Wanamaker drive-through, their water usage, not including irrigation, is 60,000 gallons a month. So you can see the impact and how that applies. A car wash, if you're looking at some of our larger car washes in town, depending on the location of that, there's using between 500,000 and 1 million gallons of water a month. Up to that 3 million gallon user is going to be one of our large industrial users, if that helps relate to the usage. The third option we presented was an allocated base, which is a prorated adjustment across all of those water meter sizes. I'll leave the numbers for you to read, but the pros and cons there are your meter size is in line with the potential demand that you're placing on the system. So the amount of money you pay is in proportion to the demand you pay on the system. A 5/8" user is going to pay $1.31, while an 8" user pays $64.35. So through those discussions, the Public Infrastructure Committee, I think that it's safe to say the consensus was to go with option 2. Because there's a strong feeling of this allows us to take that burden of the money that we need to recoup and apply it where it's most used. Of course, there were some other options that we spoke about in detail and what impacts that would have, not only to the utility, but to our customers now and down the road. So we could do a simple name change nothing else. You guys could leave it as is, and we move on into 2026 as the rate schedule currently reads, and everyone settles on that, and then we field the phone calls related to that impact. There's lots of different options, but we tried to simplify these as best we can. As I've tried to reiterate, we are in a bit of a time crunch because these rates go into effect January 1 of 2026. So everyone wants to see a change, we have to agree on a change, and then we have to put that change into the system and vet it out, which I was probably a little overzealous when I said would be a 2-week turnaround based on the fact that we are dealing with a lot of holidays and vacations towards the end of this year. So I don't want to speak for the committee here, but I'll let you all say what you want to say. But that is the presentation that we gave at the PI committee, and the committee did vote to push for option number 2. With that, I will stand for questions.
Would you say option number 4, for the sake of conversation, would be just leave as is?
Sure.
Okay.
Leave as is with just the change of the name, or leave it as is the role?
We can say option 4 is leave exactly as is. You could say option 5 is leave as is, but change the name if you wish to do that. Meaning it would read back to what it did prior to 2024 and say base charge as a name change only. Still applied, that's what is in question. Are we going to apply this to inactive customers? Continue to apply it to inactive customers?
All right. Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I too like option 2, and one of the reasons I like it is because I'm curious on the numbers on, like, you don't have to have hard and fast numbers right now, but percentages of homes that are 3,000 gallons to 30,000 gallons. Like, what is, and it might be hard to answer what the average is, and maybe it may not be, but I'd like to know what the average home in Topeka does.
So if our 5/8" meters make up 70% of all of our meters, the average usage for 5/8" meters is 3,163 gallons. So it is just over that 3,000 estimate that we're using here. You compare that to a 1-inch, our average usage on a 1-inch customer is 3,458. So those two are our highest meter sizes in the city.
Thank you. I still like option 2, and one of the reasons I don't like option 3 is because that's not something that the user can control. Their lines are put in by us, and prior to them buying the home, whatever the case may be, they don't have any control over that. So I'd be firmly against number 3, but I do like number 2. Thank you.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to make sure I understand this correctly, a couple of questions. Yes and no would be great. Prior to 2024, this was called a base rate. Was not applied to folks that had a water meter but did not use water. Is that correct?
Correct.
24, we changed the name to Readiness to Serve. So that's like 3 words instead of 2. And we applied it to folks that have a meter even though they don't use water.
Correct.
If we had not done that, we would have simply made the rate increase to match probably pretty closely to what we're suggesting now for 2026.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do anything, if we change this back and don't make any adjustments to the rates, that's going to cost us $1 million plus or minus between water and wastewater. That means infrastructure that doesn't go into the ground in 2026?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a no-brainer, really. We've got to make up for the loss of that revenue unless we do option 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is. And I'd be happy to support that as well. But I'm not going to be around to take the heat from the folks that have meters and don't use water. So I think option 2 makes sense. The only concern I have is that's going to be a pretty big hit to some of our big water users. And I don't know that there's a lot of time for, getting with those folks and letting them know what's going to happen, but hopefully we can at least get the major water users notified if we make this change tonight. So I'm going to support the action of the committee to move this forward. Again, I think trying to get this accomplished in 3 weeks or so is going to be very, very difficult, and it's just not something we can put off any longer. So if I make a motion, is that for option 2, is that the way it came through?
Just for clarity, and Sylvia, you might be able to help me on this. So what is being proposed tonight, is that considered option 2?
Correct.
The staff recommendation is option 2?
Yes, I should have said that. Absolutely.
That was a recommendation of the committee, so
As well.
I'm going to make that motion, and at least for purposes of further discussion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you. I just wanted to say this, Sylvia, and I've already said this before, time and time again I hear, because it used to be you paid for what you used. Then we changed it and said, if you use between 1,500 gallons and whatever, then you pay that amount in that square. And a lot of my constituents and a lot of people say, I only want to pay for what I use. Mm-hmm. So this option number 2 will send them back to paying for what they use. Is that correct?
On the consumption, yes.
Right.
Yes, it's that base charge that is static for everyone.
Right, right. So the little lady that only gets Social Security that says, I don't use that much, but she's paying in that window, and that's why she's paying more. So I want to make that perfectly clear.
Yes.
That this is only going to be for what they use. Yes, that is going to make some of our bigger businesses, unfortunately, that use more water, it's going to make them pay more. And that did make them pay less. But then we had our constituents saying, well, but they're paying less than they can afford it. I don't know who can afford it anymore, because I sure can't. But I just want to make sure that the constituents know, the city of Topeka citizens know that if this is adopted, this option 2, you will be paying for what you use.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you want to use less, if a customer wants to invest in newer appliances, something of that nature to help with water conservation, they can do that as well. And that would impact the amount that they're paying, so.
Now, you may not be able to give me the numbers on this, but how many meters are we at with this like vacant lots that there's nothing on the lot? It's like a development, let's say. How many properties are we looking at in that scenario?
That have nothing, no impervious surface, is that what you're saying?
It's just like, let's say it's
an undeveloped lot.
an undeveloped property, but it was intended to be developed, and we have roads and infrastructure going to it, but there's nothing there besides grass growing.
Sure, I don't have that number right off the top. I can dig for it, but I will tell you that when we initiated Readiness to Serve, we vetted all of those properties out first. So they are not getting any base charges because they don't have a connection to the system. Does that make sense? We also sent out letters, so if somebody did have a property and for whatever reason, their home was torn down, there's nothing there anymore, but they still had a water meter, we sent letters to all of those owners asking them to give us feedback if they wanted to keep their meter or not. And in X amount of days or months, we would just remove that if we didn't hear back from them, and we removed all of those. So if nothing's going on there, there is no base charge being applied because we have removed those meters. Or there was never a meter, just a topic of recent conversations, Lawrence Bay, there's no Readiness to Serve charges there because while there's main lines in that area, there are no stubs out, there's no service lines that have been installed, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other discussion before we move on? So we have a motion to approve.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
I don't have you on the camera, so I can't see you.
So under this proposal, are we zeroing out the fee people would pay if they have inactive meters?
Correct.
And what percentage of that is that of people who have meters, who are paying this fee?
That have no active usage, approximately 2% of our customer base.
And if we had just zeroed that out and made no other changes, and I'm not going to quote you to the penny, but what approximately would have been that financial difference?
Say that one more time. If we would have,
So if we had just
stopped,
taken that 2% and said tomorrow, the 2% inactive meters no longer have to pay this, what is that? What's the estimate of how much money, revenue that would reduce us by?
that is let me turn back to that page. That is the $582,000 for water and the $457,000 for wastewater.
So 2% of our inactive meters are paying $500,000 in these fees right now?
Yes. For total, for a year, yes.
And 98% pays another $500,000?
Oh.
I don't, if I have how, of the 2% of inactive meters, if we just said they don't have to pay anymore and made no other changes, you're telling me that's $500,000?
Yes,
2%?
That is how much revenue we have budgeted for in 2026, with the increases that are set to occur on January 1st. That is the $582,000 for water and the $457,000 for wastewater.
Just from that 2%?
Correct.
I don't understand those numbers. I don't understand how that is so much higher than the other 98% number. What's that number then? If we zeroed everybody out tomorrow, what is that?
If we zeroed out everybody tomorrow, it would be the 500 and 457, if we zeroed out everybody.
Correct.
Right.
If we,
So the Readiness to Serve brings in 57,000 on the water and 500 something.
That is only for inactive customers. That is not including every customer that pays Readiness to Serve on active accounts. So you
So what
take
is
that
that number?
same number, you take that $18 and you multiply it by the rest of the 98% of our customers, and that's the Readiness to Serve revenue that we're bringing in from people that are paying because they have active service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, but yes, so we're making that, we're bringing in that many millions of dollars on this one fee.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the base charge?
It would have been the base charge prior. It was just called base charge. Our customers have paid base charge since, what did we say, 2015?
14, 15, yeah.
I guess I'm confused as to why we haven't been provided those numbers. And if we have, I apologize, but I guess I haven't seen the full breadth of the entire accounting of our Readiness to Serve income. Have we been provided that?
I would say, yes, when we talk operating budget, those numbers are included in all of our projected revenue numbers as we start talking operating budget annually. That's part of the total. We know we're collecting X amount of dollars for base charge or Readiness to Serve charge and average consumption. Those are all of the numbers that come into, and any other fees that we may receive, whether it's inspection fees, there's a whole litany of fees that we receive. Revenue from our high-strength waste groups that we charge, all of that is captured in our budgeting and those numbers that we provide for you.
Right, but we haven't seen the numbers broken out during this discussion of just what the entire breadth of our Readiness to Serve charge collection is. Across
Correct.
all users.
Correct, and that, I would say that it may be easy to say we haven't perhaps been transparent, but I think the intention has been.
That's not what I'm saying.
I understand, but I'm just anticipating that, it's a commentary later. But the discussion has been the change in who that impacted. Everyone else didn't feel that impact as much because they've been used to paying that base charge.
Well, and then that's a yes to the council. I disagree with that slightly in the sense that, to me, this is a rate increase on the people who have active meters. And I would have rather us either make no change at this point and continue to have a discussion as we enter into next year, which we can continue to have. I understand there's issues with budgeting, but we can have, because I am not comfortable voting for something, as much as I don't like this fee to begin with and have all those issues and want to see that ideally zeroed out for those non-users. I cannot also in good conscience say that because of the 2% issue, 98% of our other users are going to see some possible rate increase. For me, that's my sticking point on this, and why I probably can't support this. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I may.
Sorry, yeah.
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and we anticipate all of those discussions and more, getting really down into the minutia in 2026 as we're starting those rate increase discussions moving forward. We all know, and that's why we're talking today, because we've heard, and you all have heard the complaints from what it might be a small percentage of customers, but you've heard the impact that it's had to them. And so you all are considering options on how to address that. And we're trying to help you and us at the same time figure out what is the best route. And of course, moving forward, it's already, we're in December now, so we're closing in on 2 years of Readiness to Serve. So we're talking about 2026, and I understand the dilemma everybody is faced with, and we are as well. But I do have to, again, reiterate the fact that one of the bigger initiatives, and I know we've highlighted several, but the additional revenue that we receive for Readiness to Serve specifically goes to our utility assistance programs so that we can fund that. Without that revenue, we didn't have utilities assistance. We had franchise, it's called the rate refund program, and then we had water share, but we did not have utilities assistance prior to implementing Readiness to Serve. So to that effect, if we do have a lot of customers who are having trouble paying their rates, we're trying to get them as much assistance as we can.
And I'm kind of where the 4 or 5 is my option, is why I support it. It's one of those things of kind of, we talked about earlier, you know, you have vacant properties that no one's doing anything with and the not being taxed on. It gives them more motivation to get rid of that property if they're just going to, and I call it plot squatting. Someone that owns a piece of property, whether there's something on it or not, just to own it, and they really don't see any financial hurt by just sitting there not doing anything with it. And we've had a lot of that throughout town, and I'd like to see some way to start motivating people to unload properties that they have no ambition to do anything with, so that someone can, and we can do things with our neighborhoods and our housing market that will benefit. So I'm more of a leave it as is, or leave it as is and change the name mentality. Councilman Dobler?
Yeah, I would be happy to withdraw my motion for option 2 if there's a desire to substitute that with a motion to leave as is or change the name. I'd look to my second to see if he's willing to withdraw as well.
I'm fine with that. If we were going to go forward, I would want option 2, but it sounds like we're clearly not at that spot right now, so keeping it as is fine with me.
And I'm 50-50 on that aspect of 4 and 5, because I don't want to create confusion by changing the name back to base charge, but that also may make people understand it better, that a base charge is a base charge, and that's a little bit more ready to, understanding compared to Readiness to Serve. So let's say move to leave it as is, but change the name to base pay as my motion. Is there any discussion? Council,
Can I get a point of clarification, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, sir.
You said base pay. Did you mean base rate?
Base rate, sorry. Yes, excuse me, yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, okay, so, looks like Councilwoman Ortiz?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sylvia, if we adopt this amendment, that means they will not pay what they use, they will pay in that box again, is that correct?
No. Everybody is still paying inconsumption. It just means that instead of having the base charge plus consumption, instead of having Readiness to Serve charge plus consumption, it will now say base charge plus your consumption, no change to the consumption rate.
Okay, so they'll pay for what they use.
They will pay for what they use.
And what?
And if there's a vacant property that is still connected, they would still pay the base. Instead of it saying Readiness to Serve, it will now say base charge, but it will still apply to vacant properties.
And what would that charge be for if they have to pay the base, what would that be?
The $18, so if you saw option 1, just for those numbers, it would be the $18.22 for water, $14.43 for wastewater. That's for 5/8 inch only. In the schedule that the schedule that is in our ordinance now, it would be that 2026 schedule that is currently there.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, discussion? Councilwoman Hillard?
I'll just throw this out for whatever it's worth. I'm comfortable with the option 2. I think it's minimal, and it does reapportion the rates, even up to the industrial level. We spent a lot of time worrying about that, and they talked about needing advance notice when we did the full rate schedule before, but $570 for a $3 million a month user, they can probably swing. So I'm comfortable with 2, but I'm also comfortable leaving it with the option that the deputy mayor has proposed, with simply leaving the rate schedule in place exactly as it is, just changing the name of it to base charge. That seems to have been the biggest problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we had our one-on-one about this, you advised me that most people have been paying that without a problem. There've just been a few folks that had raised the issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will own the fact that as the change was voted on in 2023, April of 2023, it didn't get implemented until January 1 of 2024. We, as a department, did we did no advertising of that change. So that was also a major pain point. It wasn't just we made a major change from base charge to readiness to serve, but we did not educate people ahead of time. And so we have owned that all day long and understand that that is absolutely something we have to do better moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hofer?
So I guess my question is, how are we going to handle the $1 million hit it takes to budget?
It wouldn't, neither one.
Correct. As I understand it, the proposal that is on the floor now, it changes nothing except the name, so there's no loss of revenue to make up.
Okay.
Councilman Banks?
As we were discussing this resolution in PI committee, I chose option number 2, and since we've been here tonight in the discussion, it's just totally confused me, and I can't imagine what the community is thinking right now at how we've gone from, we had 3 options, now we got 5 options, and what's next is kind of tough to absorb for me. I think the option number 2 allowed people to know clearly that they would be paying for consumption. Now, I think there's going to be there's going to be a little bit of confusion about what they're paying. We understand it, but I don't think community will be as understanding as we are. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
And to be clear, in essence, there's no change except for name, and so everything that's been happening for the last year will stay the same, except for instead of having readiness to serve, will be base charge on there.
If the proposal passes tonight, that's what will happen. We have been playing out all of these scenarios and working with messaging on these bills. So a current customer on their bill, it shows a readiness to serve charge, that static rate, and it also shows consumption. So they see what they're paying, that will now be the base rate, and they're still seeing their consumption. So they'll know that that is consistent. And we will be very clearly identifying that this charge, if your bill is showing usage from the end of 2025 into the beginning of 26, in order to, again, try to be as clear as possible, it will show readiness to serve charge prorated for the remainder of 2025, and then if this passes, it'll show base charge effective January 1, 2026, so that people understand why there's 2 different names, 2 different charges. They're not getting double charged, it's just signifying the change and when that began.
Councilman Dober?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilman Banks, I understand your concern. I think timing is part of the issue here. If we had just started our 3-year rate increase like we did in 2024, I think we'd have to solve this issue now. But since everything has to be discussed next year for the next 3-year rate cycle, it seems like perfect time to get community input. If there needs to be any changes to consumption or some of the methodology that's been used, be a great time to do it. So this is really just a stopgap to get us to next year for discussions on rates and take the community to 2027. So I think I can support this. Thank you, Deputy
Yeah, I think
Mayor.
another good thing on this would be any new customers' base charge is very explainable where readiness to serve isn't, so you're not having to explain to new customers also. So Any other discussion? Councilwoman
Just
Miller?
to summarize then, because Councilman Banks brings up a good point, maybe raising your rate 57 cents is easier to deal with than changing the name, but it was the name that really was problematic. So the short answer, if people ask a question for any of us and for public, is just to say, the rates have not changed at all. Still a base rate, and based on consumption, no change, just the word. Right? Did we do that? Thank you.
All right, I think we're on to vote then.
Councilmember Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 yes, the motion carries.
All right, now it's time to move on to non-action items. Madam Clerk?
A is discussion regarding the 2026 Topeka Dreams Neighborhood Improvement Initiatives Program awardees funding recommendations in the amount of $186,193.50.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Bianca Burnett, our Community Programs Administrator, will lead us through this discussion.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, governing body. This evening, I'm going to present the 2026 recommendations from our Citizen Advisory Council for the Dreams 3 initiative. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the program, and then I'll stand for any questions that you may have this evening. So the Topeka Dreams program supports neighborhood-driven projects that are within our Neighborhood Improvement Association areas. For 2026, we have up to $60,000 in community development block grant funding from HUD and $140,000 in city GO bond allocations. Each approved project receives a one-time award between $1,000 and $50,000. NIAs may partner with other community organizations to plan or implement these projects. Projects using community development block grant funding must complete national environmental reviews before funding is released by HUD. And so with that said, the total available for 2026 program is $200,000. The 2026 cycle began with city staff and Neighborhood Improvement Association consultation meetings to discuss potential projects that took place in April and May of this year. And then preliminary and final applications from the neighborhoods were submitted. Our staff review team reviewed those applications and made recommendations to the Neighborhood Improvement Associations. That took place in August and September. And then in October and November of this year, the Citizen Advisory Council reviewed the final applications, scored those applications, and concluded with voting for the funding recommendations at their meeting on November 6th. So today I'm presenting those recommendations and seeking your consideration for final approval on next Tuesday, December 9th meeting. The staff consultations that took place early this year basically helped to confirm eligibility, feasibility, and preliminary cost estimates for projects. And then the internal staff reviews the applications when they're submitted again to evaluate each project application to ensure that they meet requirements and eligibility before final applications are submitted. Those final applications and staff recommendations were shared with the Citizen Advisory Council. And then the CAC basically includes representatives from the neighborhood improvement associations and currently one city-at-large member. And there were 8 eligible Citizen Advisory Council members that reviewed and scored each of the applications. The scores were then averaged to rank applications from highest to lowest score. The total total applications that we received, there were 8 applications that were reviewed. The total funding requested was $292,993, and the total recommended by the Citizen Advisory Council is $186,193.50, which is well within the $200,000 budget. The breakdown for that funding would be $50,000 from the HUD CDBG funding available, and $136,193.50 from the city funding source. The timeline for this 2025 was the application submission and project selection process. Implementation will take place 2026 and 2027 for the approved projects. This concludes the presentation of the Citizen Advisory Council's recommendations for the 2026 DREAMS funding recommendations, and I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Any questions? Councilwoman Hiller?
I don't think you mentioned it just now, but I know I saw it somewhere in the text. Your totals don't quite hit the money allowable in the budget, but there was conversation, I think, that you took the applications as they were, and that difference leaves a buffer for the rollout period, correct?
That is correct,
Yeah.
and the Citizen Advisory Council would like the total $200,000 to remain in the budget in case there are any unforeseen overages or things that come up with those projects.
Sounded good. I just wanted to cover that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for your time and consideration of these recommendations. Have a good evening.
All right, we're going to move to public comment. Sorry. Sorry, yep. B, sorry. Yep.
B is discussion regarding the 2026 facility improvements, repair and maintenance firm program, and revising the 2025 project list.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, members of the governing body. Hello again. So what I wanted to cover tonight, our firm program is a program that is used to make repairs and replacements to our capital assets, in this case, our city facilities. Typically, these projects would go to the Infrastructure Committee for discussion and recommendation to the full governing body. These are included as part of our CIP, and then we include resolutions annually for the upcoming projects that we plan to do in the next year for approval by the entire governing body. In this case, we do have some issues where we have had some projects that were approved in the 2025 process that we would now like to make some changes for, which is why we're before you tonight. So we'll review those previously discussed and approved projects. We'll review what additional information for those projects has taken place as to why we've paused those projects or they remain incomplete, and then we'll request the approval for the updated project list. So the projects that were previously submitted that were incomplete, there was a project for structural repairs to the LEC garage for $534,000, a project to replace variable air volume boxes, mini splits, and exhaust systems within the LEC for $191,960. I should say LEC is Law Enforcement Center for anybody who isn't familiar with that acronym. We also had a project for replacement of windows at fire stations 4 and 6. We also had some projects for 2026 that were previously approved. One was the holiday HVAC balancing and refresh for $1,008,000. Additional structural repairs to the LEC garage, and then a refresh to some of our fire stations that are currently not slated for an upcoming major renovation. So why are we incomplete on these projects? Well, one is that the current ongoing repairs at our public parking garages are not complete and have taken priority. Therefore, we are not ready to make those structural repairs to the LEC at this time. The second issue is that as much as we try to plan out these projects and as much as we try to project where the most urgent need is, as we say in this business, reality bats last. Unfortunately, we've had some additional failures at the LEC and some additional investigation that has convinced us that it is far more urgent to address the systems at the LEC than it was at Holiday. Both buildings are in need of replacement, but at this time we would prioritize replacing the components at the LEC. And then also we've reevaluated our fire station priorities in lieu of some ongoing discussions about where the long-term locations of each of our fire stations may be. So this is a list of those projects in total that we would propose for 2025. I'll go over each of them in a little bit more detail. The first is a fence around the employee parking area of the law enforcement center. This is requested by TPD staff. I know this is an issue that has been brought up to the governing body before. Since that time, there have been additional incidents that have taken place in which our officers' individual vehicles, their personal vehicles, have had their license plate information recorded. They've had their vehicles keyed, taillights broken. There was an incident in which someone threw a brick at one of the vehicles. There's also been patrol vehicles parked in that location where individuals have tried to cut the wiring to the lights of the vehicles. So what this would do would be to enclose the employee parking lot. This is to the west of the facility. This would not impede any access to vehicles that are visiting the law enforcement center or the main entry to the law enforcement center. We would maintain access to the property room on the west side for pedestrians. And as I said, this would only be around the area where our TPD staff park. The base bid for this project was a chain link fence as the lowest cost option, but we did request additional options for more decorative design. I have several TPD officers who said they would not support a chain link fence. It has to be pretty. So we wanted to make sure we had options. Also, I know I've had discussions with different council members about what's appropriate along Kansas Avenue and making sure that it's appropriate for the aesthetics of downtown. Some additional projects, we have some repairs that need to happen to the masonry on the exterior of the LEC. We've seen a lot of damaged masonry. We need to repair and replace some of those mortar joints and caulking to protect the exterior of the structure. You can see some of the pictures of the facility there. And as I said, we had an emergency repair that had to take place to an air handling unit at the LEC. That unit failed last summer. We actually had to bring in portable air conditioning, and we had condensate overflow, which caused flooding in different areas of the building, and it was very expensive to make all the repairs of that failure. So at the Holiday Building, the key here is that if we've decided that we are not going to pursue that larger renovation and replacement of the HVAC systems, we wanted to prioritize what do we still need to get done in lieu of that larger renovation. So one thing that we do need to do is a project for Holiday HVAC balancing of $150,000. That would allow us, in lieu of replacing the entire pneumatic system that controls the Holiday HVAC, we would maintain those pneumatic controls for now, but there are systems that are completely failing. Those would need to be replaced. We had hoped to replace the entire system and we wouldn't need to replace individual components, but if that's not moving forward, we do have some individual components that would need replaced, like those VAV boxes, pneumatic controls, valves, strainers, and thermostats. We also would like to replace the window film on the exterior of the building. We have places on the outside of the building, especially on the south and the east side of the building, where we cannot pump enough air into those offices to maintain temperatures under 80 degrees in the summer. They often get to 85 and even higher. If we're not going to upgrade the HVAC, at least we can replace some of that window tinting to cut down on the solar heat that's generated in the summer. We also had some exterior leaks and concrete repairs to replace some broken sidewalks, curbs, driveways, and then waterproof adjacent between the building parking structure and the building where we've got some water penetration that's getting into the underground garage. And we had an emergency repair to the balcony where we had a broken pipe that was actually it was a drain pipe on the exterior of the building that was causing flooding inside the building. What we wanted to do was make sure that that is waterproofed and carry that drain from the outside of the building, not back through the building where it can damage our finishes, but actually take that out to the side of the building. And then in 2026, what we'd be proposing, all the projects are listed here. The first major issue is the HVAC replacement and a refresh for $1,133,000. This would be replacing those outdated fan-powered boxes and VAV controls, pneumatic controls and VAV boxes, excuse me. This would give us significantly increased efficiency and responsiveness. Those systems were put in the mid-90s. They are over 30 years old at this point, and they don't provide the adequate climate control that we need in that building. As I mentioned earlier, they're also starting to fail. When you're doing a renovation and replacement this extensive, it also makes sense to consider doing some additional finish upgrades at that same time. If you're going to take the time to relocate staff out of an area and set up temporary space, that's one of your best opportunities to address things like, should we replace the lighting as we're doing all of this above ceiling work, for example. We also have an elevator in that building that is well past its useful life that we would ask to do a modernization of that elevator as well. As we know, if you wait until an elevator fails, it's going to take you 4 to 5 times as long to get it fixed as if you can schedule that in advance. And in addition, one of the other projects we'd like to do in 2026, this is again a project we had hoped to do as part of that HVAC modernization and renovation. Currently, our housing area does not function well. When we have individuals that come in to seek assistance from the housing department or come in to meet with property maintenance, they don't have an appropriate waiting room. There's not appropriate security for those individuals as they come in until we can assess what their needs are and who they need to meet with. And those staff don't have private meeting spaces. They're actually taking those individuals back to their offices, or back to their cubicles, I should say, where they don't have the privacy and the dignity that they need to discuss what crisis they're facing and why they're reaching out for help from our housing department. This would allow us to have a security area where they could enter and then meet privately with a case manager or someone who can provide them with the assistance they were looking for. And then lastly, a couple of projects involving fire stations. One is that we had previously scheduled to do a renovation at Fire Station 10. This would add additional female facilities, upgrade the privacy, and do a kitchen renovation. The first phase would be in 2026. As we said earlier, we would be removing Fire Station 6 from the window replacements in 2026 and seeing if we can get some additional some window replacements at other fire stations with those funds that we had planned to use in 2025. And then we have a number of additional fire stations. These are all fire stations that are currently not being considered for relocation as part of the ongoing studies. What I have seen since I've been here is that, a lot of these fire stations need some love. We can't do a complete renovation at every station. That's just not economically or operationally feasible. But there are a lot of situations where these kitchens, these bathrooms, these sleeping quarters have not been touched in a very long time. They're residential fixtures, and these are much more like commercial structures. They cook a lot of meals in those facilities. They really put those spaces through their paces. And doing something like a kitchen renovation, putting in new cabinets where we're not closing the station for 6 months and doing a $500,000 to $1 million renovation, but could potentially, do a $50,000 renovation of a kitchen would really promote better usability of that space and make it easier to maintain and durable for the long term. So that's the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, by the way, Jason, you made people laugh online with the pretty quote there. So, I would definitely be in support of that fence. I would be more apt to have it start at the southwest corner and go directly west. So that leaves a little bit more open area just in case there's a large event at the LEC that allows for parking, because if you go from the southwest corner south, that only leaves maybe 20 spots total. And there's, things like the law enforcement, Citizens Academy and things like that do take up parking. So I wouldn't want to just monopolize all the parking for what could be an event or something like that, where now we're having people walk 2 or 3 blocks away for that reason. So I would maybe suggest and see if it's feasible to go from the southwest corner directly west on that. Firehouse 10, I'm very happy about. I'm very familiar with that, and it is an aged living quarters area and commons area. Now, on your holiday first floor, does that include the conference room?
So it's not currently included in that proposal. Obviously, that conference room has seen better days, and it's a space that's used a lot for public meetings. That is absolutely a space that we'd like to address and was potentially going to be addressed in an overall renovation. And it would just be a matter of seeing if there's funds available to do that.
My main thing is just the carpet, especially if we're doing public events there, and that carpet's just not very good right now. Anyone else? Councilwoman Hiller?
Thank you. I appreciate, City Manager, you pulling this off. I have a number of concerns with this proposal They really aren't about the projects per se, but we're in a budget crisis. This 2.3 million that has been backfilled with projects is all slated in the CIP to be bonded. We have loosened up on following our own policies about what we will bond as projects. And I think there's time for us to look into this, to what's on this list, and see if we can't shape it up and also look at saving some money long-term. I think everybody knows, because we talk about it fairly often, that anytime we borrow money, it's going to cost, if we borrow for only 15 years, it's going to cost 40% more. If we borrow for 20 years, it's going to cost 60% more. We also have very specific wording in the two resolutions that are our guidance for CIP and for borrowing money, that we should only be bonding things that have a long lifespan, where there's good reason to ask people in the future to help pay for what we're creating today. They're never supposed to be bonded for longer than they're expected to last. There's some questions about some of those. There's also specific language that we do not bond maintenance. And when you compare that also to specific language that we have that we're not supposed to bond anything that costs less than $125,000, we've got items on here that were maintenance or were smaller that are being lumped in together to be bonded. I know that we're sort of transitioning into creating the facilities fund and have the potential in the future to have more money in there. But we've really got to watch this. Thank you, Jason, for the extra dollars. Also, a few years ago now, talked as a council about doing a fence around the LEC parking lot. It's come up once before. As that progressed, the discussion was if it was going to happen, it could be funded out of the police department's special fund for cash rather than bonded. And I don't know if that's been discussed at this point. We've over just the past few business days, there haven't been many since this all started rolling, talked about some different options. So I appreciate this being pulled off, laid out some of the issues. I'm happy to continue working on figuring out some resolutions for those. But if this discussion, or if people have more questions and comments today, and this could probably be ready to roll up for a vote on the 16th. Not trying to rush it since everybody's still catching up with things, but probably could be ready for a vote on the 16th.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. Jason, I believe Councilman Dobler asked you about the fence and what it looked like. We have not seen that. Is that correct?
That's correct. So that bid actually closed at 2 p.m. today.
Okay.
We originally put it out to bid, and then there were some questions and some issues with the responsiveness of those bids, so we extended it. That bid did close it today. We did receive a bid under the budgeted amount that would allow for a more decorative fencing option. We would review those specifications exactly to make sure it fits with our requirements before we would proceed.
Okay, because I know that was very important, not only to him, but to the committee and different people that have commented. They just don't want it to look like a prison or anything like that.
I absolutely understand that concern.
Now, I'm very skeptical on it. I mean, I don't want it to look uninviting, period, to people. And I feel like that's sometimes what happens when we put up a fence, is to keep others out. And so to me, I'm not really supporting it, but I do want to see this decorative fence. And I know that some of my colleagues have expressed to me that they're not going to vote on it until they see something. And I can understand that. Okay. I do also understand some of the issues that they've had down there at the LEC. I can understand that, but at the same time, I think a lot of our business owners are experiencing a lot of the same things downtown. You know, that's kind of part of the job. You know, my car tags out there, my house is out there, my family's out there. It's kind of part of the job. So we'll continue to look at it, and I do know, like I said, I've had a couple of my colleagues say they don't just want something with a barbed wire or something that looks like a prison or something that looks uninviting. And so you have a hard job to do right now. I do appreciate you going through the fire stations, especially if we're not going to, if we're, eventually push them out to see how we can not invest so much money in there, because I know we've invested a lot of money in sixes, and it's well overdue. You're right. It needs, I will correct you, it needs a lot of love, a lot of attention. And that's our fault up here. But I don't want us to see investing a lot and then having to tear it down or move or whatever. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Jason.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm sitting here looking at these fire projects, these 2026 fire projects with the refresh and the window replacements, and it does look like a lot of these places do need that love. I'm sitting here thinking about funding sources for it, and I'm wondering, and maybe this is way outside of what we can do, but like, what's the rules on, because we got some local design groups. I won't, just like Sylvia's, not Sylvia, I'm sorry. Like she said earlier, I don't want to say any particular names of companies, but if I had either an up and coming or a established company that remodels bathrooms or remodels kitchens, what would be the rules of what we can do of where, we put it out for bid and hey, they put their name on it for 15, 20 years. That fire station's not going nowhere. Those firefighters are good people who make good money and care for their homes outside of work. They care for the stuff here. They really care for it at the stations. I would love to have my advertising right in front of them to redesign their homes for the next 20 years. Like, is there a way for us to do stuff like that?
That would be a question that I would have to defer to the city attorney and our procurement team on what would be acceptable for us to allow advertising or sponsorship in a manner like that.
Okay.
Good idea.
And to that point, council member, that'd be something we'd have to research. I haven't ever contemplated that, but that's something we'd have to look at our code and any applicable state statutes, but it's something we could look into.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I appreciate it.
Kind of what I said earlier about the barring, I look at it as if we yes, it may cost more money right now if we lived in a vacuum and everything stayed exactly the same for the next 20 years. But if we have to push projects 2-3 years, on some of those photos, there's, seals they're busted. So now water's getting in there, water damage happens. Now we're looking at more projects happening, and over time, stuff goes up in cost. So sometimes bonding is sometimes the best option because it takes all that guesswork of the future out of it, and we're taking care of the issue. We know what we're paying right now, rather than not bonding it, waiting 2 or 3 years to do the project, and now we are added 3 or 4 things to that project. And some of that was maybe caused by delaying the project and just kicking the can down the road. So I always look at certain things as when it comes to, the fire stations. This is where these men and women live half their working lives. And they would love to do stuff themselves, but due to agreements that are out there with the city, they're not allowed. Sometimes, and they'd love just to paint the common area. They get told no, that they have to wait for the painters to do it. And half these, men and women are painters on their off time. So, and these are the people I trust to do it, and this is where they live. And when they have to come walk into some place that's old, dated, broken down, it doesn't really motivate them to come to work. And like I said, this is where they eat, sleep, commiserate with everyone. And we also have people, we have groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H clubs coming into these firehouses. So I know 10 is I've been to well over half of them in town, and I know 10 is just definitely, like the kitchen definitely needs a refresh so they can have a choice in the way they live, because right now it's kind of limited on what they're allowed to do, what they can't do, and things like that. And with these other ones, like the windows, we start looking at water damage with water and snow and all this getting into the building. Certain things, I get the HVAC situation. I'm the opposite at my work. Summertime, it's 60 degrees. Wintertime, it's 100 degrees because, the way they have our system set up to make sure it equally goes across the floor. Our room in the winter or summer is freezing, and with steam pipes, you can never control the temperature. So I understand that when people have to go to work, Holiday Building and LEC, there is no way to open a window to cool yourself off. It's kind of, you're stuck with what you're stuck with. So again, I don't want people to not want to come to work because of maintenance issues. And pushing it 2 or 3 years down the road can become an issue with some people. So, anyone? Oh, Councilwoman Hiller.
Clarification, did not suggest pushing it off.
Yeah.
Any of them. The issue is us all taking responsibility for our finances and the policies that we've had in terms of knowing about a project before it shows up for slid into a new batch. And looking at alternative ideas, taking the time to come up with, to say, how else can we do this? Some of these also are eligible for historic tax credits. There may be some grants that we haven't looked for. We don't want to take too much time to put them off, but we've gotten ourselves where we are financially by, we've started now looking for grants and looking for more creative ways to get things done.
Yeah, I apologize if I insinuated that
did.
to you, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I do have one more thing.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
I do want to add that, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, the LEC is the last one of our assets that's not fenced. Is that correct? Now, all of our other assets are fenced in. Fleet.
So our fleet facilities, yes, most of those facilities would have fencing around them. The law enforcement center currently does not. The Holiday Building does not have a fence around it, but it does have covered parking underground. City Hall does not have a fence around it. Fire administration does have a fence around it. The difference would be that, City Hall and Holiday, those are typically not buildings where people are working overnight. They're typically only working during business hours or at a meeting where they're leaving with a large group of people. Whereas the LEC, not only is there a lot of foot traffic immediately adjacent to where the employees park, but they're also leaving their vehicles exposed overnight while they're going out on patrol and serving the community, and their property has been left behind.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you, Jason. All right, now to public comment. At this time, I will call the individuals signed up to speak for general public comment to the podium. Each person will be given 4 minutes to address the governing body. First up, we have Sandra Lassiter.
Good evening to each of you. I would be remiss, Sandra Laster, 4210 Gage, I would be remiss, wanted to say to the fire chief that I was involved with an incident where the young person was having a little trauma and kind of a mental breakdown, and the firemen showed up as well. They did a commendable job of de-escalating. So I wanted to commend you, let you know you are not forgotten. I was listening to an advertisement by Midland Hospice, and they stated, "We hear, we care, and we do something about it." So as I listened to them, I thought about this is the position that you're in as leaders in this city, in that I heard people say, "We hear, but do we care, and are we doing something about it?" I've just recently experienced hearing about Mr., I believe his name is Sean Gorin, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correct, but he's over the public works, he was one of the lead persons there, and he was fired at will, because Kansas is an at-will state. Now, whose will it was for him to leave, I don't know, but I know he was a valuable person, he was credible, he was a person who's of a caliber personality, and it concerns me when I hear about this firing persons who are credible. Don't know if you all have all the information, but of course, when you say it's an at-will state and it's under litigation, we can't discuss it, it's a personnel matter, then some of you may not ask, but I'm often questioning how those things are coming about. I'm concerned about the several crumbling things that are happening in this city, and I'm not the only one, a number of citizens are as well. And we're getting ready to revisit the Lowry case again, that citizens and families have tried to plead with you, have hoped that you were concerned. They even tried to reduce themselves to a claim. And maybe it was not the city attorney or interim city attorney or city manager that brought in outside counsel to the tune of approximately $500 an hour just to give you information about how to deal with a claim. I'm concerned because I understand that I've gotten some information that the previous case, when they first filed it, that the city spent $80,000 on this particular case, and then that was used and abused tax monies. Now, if I'm wrong, please forgive me, and whoever will speak with me, I would love to have that conversation with you. Outside attorneys are mounting up as we file cases, and it's unfortunate in the Lowry and Dillon killings that we have had to deal with this again and again. And it says, if it appears that those poor, dumb, ignorant people who keep coming before us, I wish they would shut up, sit down. That's not going to happen. This is a disgrace to our city, and people are talking about us all over the nation, maybe all over the world. Even in the Lowry case, I'm concerned again because as we have new recruits coming in, I'm concerned about how they are trained. Of course, we have a new chief, but I'm concerned about the old guard or the gatekeepers that might be telling them, don't de-escalate, just shoot them in the head, like they did Mr. Dillon. Mr. Lowry could have been shot in the head and killed with just a couple of shots instead of 34 times by 5 officers, and Dillon was shot 9 times in the head. That's excessive, that's abuse, that's malicious, and we're concerned about it. The interim city attorney, I called his administrative assistant, and she began to tell me, as I wanted to ask some questions, and some other citizens as well as myself, she began to tell me that she would take the questions, she would give him the information, and then he would get another attorney to speak with me. Never had that really happen. I don't understand what this is, but whatever it is, I stand to be corrected. Our city attorney is representing the city of Topeka, and he's a city attorney. I'd like to have another minute or two, if that's possible.
All right. 2 minutes, Ms. Lassiter.
2?
Yes,
Thank you for the 2. I understand if a city employee files a case against the city, then the city interim city attorney, then he once again litigates with them and possibly calls for another outside attorney at the tune of $500, which are our taxpayers' dollars, to litigate cases that we know nothing about. It appears that the mayor's running the city. It appears that the city manager's running the city, and there's a lot of uncertainty now in the city about who is running this city. I spoke with Mr. Spencer Duncan, and he told me that, I asked him who's wagging the tail. Is the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog? And he said, Ms. Lassiter, we are the bosses. The city council, we are the bosses. We're the city manager's bosses. And it appears that neither the city attorney, neither the city manager, neither the mayor, neither the city council is truly running the city. It appears that somewhere along the line, even with the financial decisions, that we have a puppeteer running this city. And we're very concerned as citizens about who is causing you to be fearful, less courageous, stand up for the people. And if this was one of your children, your husband, your son, I'd stand with you just like I'm standing with these other people. It's not about partiality, it's not about personality, but it's about a sincere desire to take care of the city of Topeka. Thank you very much. God bless you. Praying for you.
Thank you, Ms. Lassiter.
Yes, sir.
That's your purse.
Excuse me.
Your purse.
Oh, that's right. There's no money in there anyway. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'd expect you to bring it to me here.
Everyone's taking shots at you tonight. All right, so next we have Patricia Pena.
Yes, right here. Good to meet all of you. My name's Patricia Pena. My Kickapoo name is Manisnoquah. And I have a master's in social work from the Washington University in St. Louis. I was in the McDonald's when 2 people were shot and the third committed suicide in Sonic. I had my receipt says 8:14 p.m. I just ordered food. I told the employee and my sister Ophelia, I'll be right back. I'm going to go put these drinks in the car. Put them in the car, turn around, walk in, and these men are laying on the ground. But I did not see blood. And the reason I'm sharing this trauma response with you, it could happen to any of you or your families. We live in a time where these horrible events are happening. And so the reason I'm bringing it to you, my brain went into shock. When I looked at the first man, which much later I realized was blood pumping out of his head, my mind automatically took me to, why are these men pranking the employees? And why are they using so much ketchup? I'm going to go tell the employees. I march up to the counter. There is nobody inside McDonald's except me and the 2 victims. And I'm screaming for my sister Ophelia, where are you? What's going on? It was horrific, to say the least. And I don't even know how long I was in there, but it feels like I was in there quite a while, looking around, trying to make sense of this. I was in shock. I turned around, walked right by the 2 men again, and stood there staring at them. My brain would not say, Patricia, those men were gunned down, get the hell out. And I walked out and I saw cars lined up in the drive-thru, so I started walking that way, yelling for my sister. Boom, she says, I see some employees, and then I don't see my sister, but she yells at me, Patty, don't go inside. And my whole body just shook. I mean, violently shook. And I don't know how I made it to my car with the keys to open the door. I got in, I drove like a wild woman out the front, down the street to the gas station, told the employee, call 911. Something horrible happened at McDonald's. And then from that point on, it was just horrible. But I'm going to say the police, the emergency response was just, I mean, absolutely quick. I was passing them as I was going to that gas station. So I really appreciate that. But the reason I'm bringing this to the council, so that you know what city you're living in. And this is everywhere. It's not just Topeka. I love Topeka. I'm a transplant from California. And I'm just, I would like to have you consider having a visual alert for people like me that didn't hear anything. If that McDonald's had lit up in red flashing lights on the exterior, I would not have gone in there. There was nothing to tell me, stop. Imagine any other people, little kids running in there.
Ms. Pena?
And then what if, I understand, and then what if...
If you'd like an extension, you can get it.
Yes, just a little bit, but,
2 minutes. All right.
okay, if children walked in there, or what if there was still an active shooter? I didn't even know that because my brain was in shock. So what I'm saying is, let's remember, we're in the 21st century. Come on, lights on the exterior flashing, warning, warning, don't go in. It's so simple. It doesn't have to be expensive. McDonald's can afford it. They take our money every single day. I go there for a coffee. I go there, my family goes there to eat. I mean, I haven't gone in since, but I'm just telling you that, you know, this is something that fast food restaurants need to consider. And it would be great, you know, if Topeka could take the lead in that, at least for our city. So that's basically all I wanted to share with all of you. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pena. Danielle Twimlow.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up from a previous time, last time I spoke at public comment, and made a brief mention of concerns of how we do business within our city. Specifically brought up how Kansas Topsoil and Trucking was not a registered entity with the state of Kansas. I do see that as of a few days later, after public comment, they went ahead and filed their paperwork with the state of Kansas after, you know, over 2 years of not having their paperwork done. But that's really the least of the problems, because they still do not have hiring authority with the safety measurement system through the federal government. They never did that paperwork. I do also want to point out that we have a state commission where it is required to get certificates and different applications. For instance, a private carrier permit or public service permit. These are to kind of assure that you're keeping up with safety standards and doing, like that you have insurance for your company and things like that in order to do business. And they were denied and have never been provided either of those things through the state. And according to the state or federal government site, their insurance was also forfeited several years ago. So I am publicly submitting a CORA request, and I am requesting documents regarding Kansas Topsoil and Trucking LLC, Travis Smith, or any associated employee for copies of contracts and payments made, bid records, work orders, procurement logs, and email communications. So I'll go ahead and turn this in. Thank you. So furthermore, just kind of reiterates that a concern was brought up about this organization. Apparently an investigation was done, and any sort of investigation should have unveiled these types of things. Any sort of proper process of getting business with someone should require these things. And so if I'm missing them, if they're some reason not registered properly with federal government or state entities for some reason, but they're actually there, great, I'd love to know that. Because it really concerns me when we continue to have these issues of trust and transparency and burden on taxpayer dollars, that this seems to be what's happening. And we're entrusting that the internal processes should be occurring the way they are supposed to when these investigations are happening, and it quite clearly is not. So I will look forward to any follow-up, and will be the first. I will absolutely love to come up here with corrected documentation. That would be great. And look forward to having that conversation further, because it seems to me that we are letting go the wrong employees who are actually doing accountable work, and I would like accountability for that.
Thank you, Ms. Tremlow. Lazone Grays.
Good evening, City Council, Deputy Mayor. I hope you got the email that I sent in advance. This isn't the first time I'm coming to speak to this issue. I just think that it's probably timely now that I do come and speak to it. If you got the attachments that I had sent, the first three are the new work requirements under the SNAP policy. Now, some of the last two shows that I came here in June of 2023, speaking to the work requirements that had been enacted, were going into place because the state legislature had passed policy to enhance work requirements for those who are receiving food assistance, SNAP. I came here because the work requirements, which is really something that is big, that people are going to have to be doing so many hours per month, working, participating in a job training program, or participating in some other approved work activity through DCF. The state of Kansas's policy is probably light compared to what was recently passed earlier this year under the big bill in DC. There are new requirements as well as exemptions. And if you have a time to read it, I hope you would. One of them would be removing the exemptions for veterans, foster youth, and the homeless. Now, the policy is that you have to be working, I believe, you have to be doing something 80 hours a month. You may not be working 80 hours a month. You may not be volunteering or doing work activity. You may not be in a job training program. I bought this here earlier because every city, Kansas had its policy, and that's what was going to happen in Kansas, but now it's a national policy with work requirements. And in each different city, someone's going to have to provide and make available those 80 hours, whether that's through approved job training programs, whether that's through other activities which could be volunteering or workplace readiness programs. I was coming in 2023 to try to get some type of a list. I don't know the organizations in your neighborhoods, you do, but I would think you would want to not just react like within the snap of what has happened. That was a great reaction because the food was gone, but these are something that's deeper than the food within itself. You may know 5 or 6 organizations in your district that you can say, hey, do you have any volunteer opportunities or 20 hours, or what can you bring to the table? And then compile that list and then share it with basically the DCF case managers who are going to be doing the intake for those people who they're going to have to say during recertification that's coming up, you now have work requirements. If you're not working 80 hours a month, you're going to have to do something else. Where's a list that they could give somebody in Topeka? Who is in Wichita? That's a different story. But I think that there should be some type of a list, some type of aid, so that, the local DCF workers can at least provide some direction to the people. One of the things that I don't think that people realize is that, because they don't really understand this policy, is that there was the shutdown and then there was the delay in the SNAP, and then there's sort of like a reprieve until, November, the end of November. And then in December, when people are talking about going in recertification, which you hear, they're going to have to go in and hear the riot act on, these are the things that you're going to have to do now. And I think that the city should try to help their agency provide a list. And if I could get a couple more minutes, that would be great.
2 more minutes, Mr. Grace.
Thank you. If you could, provide a list, working with your agencies and organizations that are there, because no one organization can do it all. It's not all just about food. There's going to be a recertification period. When you look at the information, it's going to tell you when that recertification is going to start. I think that you may want to have something in place by January 1st, because that's when a lot of people are going to be going in for recertification. They're going to be told by people that you have to account for 80 hours per month. And, I was hoping in 2023 that it would gain some legs to where it could be put in some type of committee or some type of group where these could be discussed. But because I think of the shutdown and the uncertainty on SNAP, I think that just pushed this conversation right back up to the forefront. It's not just about food being delayed. It's about the long game on making sure that people can stay certified. And so I don't know what the answers can be. At that time, we didn't have a city manager. I think Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, she was trying to work on it with the interim city manager, Nofeld. But personally, I just don't think that there's time to delay. It may not be something that you want to wait until the mayor-elect come into office. You may want to get started on something now. There are specifically the people that you can convene, especially with DCF, so you can hear what these work requirements are going to require and what's going to happen, and maybe they can push you over the edge on finding some type of a framework, just as you did for OSNAP and the food delay. I think that you should really be taking a serious look at what these work requirements are going to mean to our community. We have organizations that can create volunteer opportunities. We have some job training programs that people should be able to get in on. But if the people do not know, then that's on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. All right. Now we are on to announcements. City Clerk?
Okay, for the December 9th agenda, we have 6 board appointments. We will have a presentation, Visit Topeka update. On the consent agenda, we'll have 1 professional services contract with United Engineers Group Midwest LLC. Action items include the contract with Visit Topeka renewal. We have a resolution for the 2026 Topeka Dreams Program funding. Public hearing on the 2025 budget amendments. Public hearing and ordinance on the Sunflower Crossing redevelopment project plan. That's a TIF district. And then we have an ordinance approving the development agreement for that with BHI Development Incorporated. And then a public hearing and ordinance for the Sunflower Crossing Community Improvement District. We have a partial assignment development agreement with Wanamaker Hills CID. And we have discussion and possible action on 3 BID ordinances. The first one is for the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District, Downtown Business Improvement District, and then the Noto Business Improvement District. We have a resolution on Lawrence Bay LB Lots LLC for the RHID application Phase 2. That's deferred from the November 5th meeting. We also have a resolution for Lawrence Bay Special Assessment Forgiveness. And then we have the 2 items from tonight, the planning items that were deferred to the 16th. We also have, let me see, no discussions next week. And then on December 10th, we'll have a JETO board meeting. It's here at 6 o'clock. That's City Council Chambers, 214 Southeast 8th Street on December 10th.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to piggyback off of the clerk's announcements, I'm going to ask for the City Council's flexibility on future agenda items. We are trying to wrap up negotiations with the Hotel Topeka and Endeavor Hotel Groups. And so as we try to finalize the purchase agreement, we'll probably be looking to put something on the CDC committee meeting and then bring it to council. And we're trying to wrap that up here within the next week or 2. So if I could just ask for the City Council's flexibility on our upcoming agendas. Just wanted to make that. Nothing else, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Councilwoman Ortiz. Go ahead. She's not here, so it's you. Starts with you this month.
I thought it was whoever. Okay. I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Nothing for me.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, nothing for me.
Councilman Duncan.
He's offline.
Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Well, I'll just punch in with something really short. I hope that everyone on this body, as well as those in the audience and out in the community, had one way or another a rich and wonderful Thanksgiving and start to the holiday season. It's been a mixed bag this year, so lots of tragedies as well as good times, and so I'm always sensitive to supporting everybody through the season. And sort of related, I usually don't bring up anything personal, but today is my firstborn son's 45th birthday. I'm like, yikes. Pretty excited about that. All is well for him as well as his two brothers, and just a shout out, happy birthday, Brian. That's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mainly, I just want to talk about, you know, we're dealing with the cold here, we're dealing with the snow. Please check on your neighbors. Make sure that people have what they need. If you have the time, the money, or the goods, please check out the donation spots around town, especially the giving boxes. Make sure you shovel your sidewalks. Kids have to walk to and from school. People have to walk down the sidewalks. Please make sure you're clearing your sidewalks. And then please make sure when you're cleaning up your yards, you're not shoving the leaves right into the street. That does a lot of damage to our stormwater system. It can clog it, things like that. Plus it creates hazards in the roads for people on bikes, motorcycles, things like that. So please take care of your leaves and your snow. With that, we have no need for an executive session. This meeting is adjourned.